Exuberant enough, Joe? Thank you. Do you want some more adjectives?
Consideration of a proposed consent agreement to resolve multiple property claims, including violation of the city zoning ordinance. Todd?
Good evening, Todd Rosenberg, Realtor's Code Enforcement Officer, and I'm here to talk about the consent agreement. In fact, let me go ahead and pass out a small amendment to what you already have, and particularly paragraph 7. The city's looking at entering into a consent agreement with Aurora. Well, I take that back. It was Aurora for so long, I get stuck with that. It is now Nation Star. And thank you. Nation Star, who recently bought out this mortgage in Aurora. It's 358 High Street. 360 High Street is also involved as an abutter. And the basis of the terms of agreement, something that we've been working on for about 16 months. As I gave you a little history of it with my memo, working with city attorney, public works, the owners of these properties, their attorneys, and the list is quite lengthy. But we feel that we've come up with a workable solution that will cure the violations that occurred with this property many years ago. And we'd like to field any questions you might have about this consent.
Mike?
And, you know, the one thing that I noticed is that it adds one more curb cut. I have to drive by this place every day, and I always wonder why that problem hasn't been solved. So I was very glad to see that somebody was trying to solve it. This is something that Michelle Morrow is party to. Is happy with this solution? She has her attorney here to speak on their position on this. Okay. Could we hear that? Certainly. I guess I'll wait until after to present anything further then. Okay.
I'm Paul Gibbons. I'm an attorney in Camden. I represent Michelle Morrow. She's owns the property next door, and she's been there operated a successful dentistry practice for 24 years. The problem is water. The problem is water. The problem with this solution is the water problem. It's a threat to our property. We just learned, well, 5 days ago, what the solution was going to be for this problem of a zoning violation. And we wanted to see the zoning violation cured if we could. But the problem is water. And I have with me today our engineer, Bill Lane. But you will learn that there's 2 flows of water that goes down onto this property right between these 2 properties. Water from my client's property and water from the property next door all drain down to an area right between these 2 properties. And that is where they intend to put this driveway. And the problem is, if they put that driveway there, it may flood my client's property. And it looks like it will flood my client's property. Now, my client hired me and an engineer in an effort, because we just got notice, to see if we could get this to work. We wanted to be cooperative. And I said, give me 2 weeks, give me 2 more weeks, so I can get my engineer down there to find out if it's even possible to put a driveway in there that won't flood my client's property. And when you consider this, my client has committed no zoning violations, none. For 24 years, she's been operating her business there clean of any zoning violations. This is being done to help out someone next door who has violated your ordinance, who has caused problems with setbacks and lack of access because they didn't do things right. And my client we will not allow this city, believe me, we won't, to put our property in jeopardy unnecessarily so that a zoning violator can get away with a zoning violation. We want to help out, we want to be cooperative, and all we asked for was 2 weeks so I could get my engineer down there to make sure that this wasn't going to flood my property, and I believe it will. At the last second, they offered, I asked them for 2 weeks, and they said, no, we can't do that. We have to get this done tonight. And the solution was, well, we'll put another culvert underneath this proposed driveway, and if you don't like that, get back to us. I don't care if you put 25 culverts under there or none. I'm not going to let you, this city, do something to jeopardize my client's property by flooding it for someone who's committed a zoning violation without me having the fair opportunity to analyze it and to make sure that's not going to happen. We will cooperate. We want to make sure it works, but I don't think it will. That's the problem, is water. My client's property could literally be flooded. Her access to her patients could be all ice in the winter because a zoning violator wanted to do something fast, and all I wanted to do was to have my engineer go in and our own cost and expense to find out if this was going to work. If anybody else had filed a plan, the plan is very incomplete. That's why we have a problem. If anybody else filed a plan for an application with the city, they'd have to design this thing completely, and they don't. There may even be some DEP violations. There are even violations of your own ordinance concerning other aspects, but I don't want to go into all the details right now. I'm just telling you that's the problem. I'm going to have my expert talk to you in just a minute. I'm going to pass out to you a series of pictures, and I know you don't have a lot of time. I'm just doing that to protect the record. I'm also going to pass out a map. This map, so you'll have it as part of the record. I want to make sure it's part of the record because I'll tell you what. If this is not continued, my client's only course is to go to court. She has no other course because there isn't enough time for her to protect her. And if we go to court, the person next door who's trying to sell that property won't be able to do it. That's one of the problems. The person next door is trying to sell the property. We don't want to stop that. We just want to protect our property, and we've only had 5 days' notice. So I'm going to try to be brief as I can. I just summarized what the problem is, and the problem is real, and the city has not been able to address that problem, and they don't have a design that protects us, and it looks like almost certain it's going to cause us a problem with water. I'm going to pass out the maps and some pictures that I've taken. I'm going to also pass out a section of your ordinance entitled erosion control, which requires the city to be 10 feet back. But again, there could be problems with NAPA violations. There could be problems with wetland violations. I don't know. I don't care about that. I care about protecting my client from a flood. And that's not fair since she didn't violate the ordinance and the people next door did. So let me just pass this out and you can ask some questions. Sure.
Mike, you want something?
Normally, when something like this is handed to the council, it's usually everybody's in agreement, and it's, kind of a, there's not much to it. I'm sensing a little less agreement on your part than normal, than we might expect when we get in a kind of agreement like this. Is this something we should be referring back to Todd and asking for some more time on this, Todd? It just seems pretty complicated for us to start reviewing all this tonight.
It is, and up to just a couple of days ago, we had no information that there was a flow coming from this neighboring property. We also went out and took a look at it. We believe that it's still workable. This is a storm event swale, not a DEP violation as was alluded to. USGS quads have been reviewed. The registry for wetlands have been reviewed. And it wasn't reviewed just recently. This was reviewed 16 months ago when this all came about. This is nothing more than a drainage swale. It has no scoured bottom. It has no describable banks. It has no aquatic life. It's all terrestrial. Also was mentioned about design. There is not a single-family home nor a duplex in the city that is required to have a driveway designed by an engineer or anybody else. A driveway is a 14-foot wide requirement. We have a 26-foot wide right-of-way. We've addressed the intermittent drainage ditch with 2 culverts. We've asked for a 3rd culvert as soon as we found out about this drainage coming from the abutter. The state of Maine has erosion control best maintenance practices, which are required to be practiced on any site where you've disturbed ground. This is not a written plan. It is something that I go out, I inspect, I see open ground, I require erosion control measures to be taken. In the case where we do have a waterway, there's extra precautions taken. Also, this is something that we decided to bring forth today because of the front property. Miss Kennedy has a closing on the 21st. We wanted to get this before the council. We wanted to talk about any possible questions or additions that the council would like so that we're not the 11th hour the night before bringing this forward to you the first time. And so we are aware that there is concerns. However, we felt strongly enough that we need to bring this before the council tonight.
Todd, if we postponed this for a couple of weeks till they had a chance to get their engineer to evaluate it, that would set the closing back? I mean, is that...
Well, it's the night before. It's the night before the closing.
Can they get a rescheduled date on the closing so that they'd have the opportunity to...
I don't know. I'll have to let Ms. Kennedy or her representative speak to that. I don't know those details. I will say engineering is not required. We're talking about a duplex or a single-family home's driveway. Yes, there's a little bit more involved because there is a drainage swale. We do recognize that there's a drainage swale coming from the abutter. Wayne and I were out there walking it this evening. It's a little moist. The owner of that property has a little footbridge that goes over this, and we're talking a 6-inch at most piece of pipe that is laying in this drainage ditch so they can walk across it. This is not some catastrophic stream or waterway that is going to back up and flood a property. We're talking about 15-inch culverts, and it's going to handle any amount of storm-related surge we're going to get off of that property.
Where is that water going through those culverts? I mean,
it ends up right at the city's right-of-way. There's a culvert that I want to say 1996 or somewhere in that neighborhood was put in to bring it across the road, and it ends up down in the bay. And that culvert is identified on your plan. Culvert found in 1996 going across High Street.
I am a little gun shy on these issues because we've got another issue going on that probably shouldn't have been going on, and makes me a little gun shy. I don't know about the rest of the council, but I mean, seems 2 weeks isn't too awful much if someone else is gonna foot the bill for it, just to, I would think that you people could work that out, seems.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mayor, and other members of the City Council. My name is Nate Huckelbauer. I'm an attorney from Portland, and I represent Nation Star Mortgage, the owner of the property now. Unfortunately, due to a schedule conflict, it wouldn't be 2 weeks. It'd have to be 4 weeks, which puts us quite a bit past Ms. Kennedy's closing, and it also puts us about almost 2 years since we've been working on this. So this is not a quick solution that we've come to. This is not these are not violations that Nation Star or Aurora or Ms. Kennedy created. These are solutions to conditions that were there on the property when the current owners came to the properties. We're willing to work with Ms. Morrow and install the additional culvert to make sure that any drainage off of her property is taken care of, but it seems that it's a question of whether, do you have some faith that we've been working in good good faith with the other property owners, with Ms. Morrow, talked to her over a year ago about the plan. Would she let us have access to the property over her existing driveway? That would have been great. No. Okay, well, the alternative is going to be to install a driveway where this one's going in. So she's known about this approximate location for quite a while, and I realize she got a late notice of this hearing and this consent agreement, but it's unfortunate that this kind of opposition came to the surface just 2 days before the hearing, where we've been working really in good faith. We've addressed the concerns of Ms. Kennedy. We've addressed the concerns of the other abutter, Ms. Lobato. Nation Star is ready to get this property back into compliance with your help, get it back into being a productive, comfortable home for people here in Belfast. And I'm confident that we can work with Ms. Morrow to address her concerns and work with the city staff to address the concerns. But it's something that can happen quickly, but we'd like your approval tonight so that we can have this part of it over and we can move ahead. And, you know, as Todd has said, if there's a requirement that the water be addressed, that's a code requirement, and Todd is able to impose that. But this consent agreement, what it does is allows us to cure an encroachment and get part of the property back into compliance and have a plan for providing access that will meet that requirement. And the alternative, if we can't keep the driveway in this location, may be litigation with Ms. Kennedy, because she's been steadfastly opposed to putting the driveway in the location where her parking area is, and that would be a convenient location for everyone, but she doesn't want it there, and so we're trying to work with her to have it in a place that will be less impactful on her property, and again, we're willing to work with the other abutters to address those impacts, but we need to have your support here so we can move on to that next phase. And I'm happy to answer any questions or try to answer them.
So can we make a motion to approve it contingent on resolving it with the Michelle Morrow?
I have a question. I didn't get a chance to hear my engineer talk. I don't know if you can deny me that, but I just want to let you know the problem is more severe than you've heard. It's up to you. I mean, I don't want to. I just tell you that if you don't continue this,
yeah,
my client's going to court.
Yeah.
That's how serious this is for us. That's not a threat. We have to protect ourselves. 2 weeks is all I'm asking for. And you would think I'm asking for. We've been doing a lot of expenses ourselves. We're just trying to protect our interests.
I don't know the answer to you. I'd say probably not, but I don't know.
Then we got We have someone written, Mike Cunning's got his hand up and back.
Yeah, but
What do we want?
I guess I'd like to hear this gentleman's engineer, because, so that we can get some sort of a scope of what the problem,
I just want to remind you,
but,
that I'm asking.
but be brief now, because.
Yeah, this is Bill Lane, and maybe Billy can go up here.
Good evening, I'm Bill Lane from Gartley Dorsey Engineering and Surveying. Thank you for your time this evening, and I hope to be brief. We've assembled, with the available time, aerial image, the municipal tax map line work, as well as LiDAR contours, which are available for the city of Belfast, which are a very useful resource. They are not particularly strong graphically, so I'm going to take a moment to identify the parcels as well as the topographic information that's pertinent to this discussion. So Waldo Avenue is above us, and for approximately 800 feet, we have a steady march of contours down the gradient towards High Street, across High Street, and down towards the river. These are the parcels of interest. Ms. Kennedy is here. Dr. Morrow is here. And if you can still hear me, we have a progression of contours, and there's a depiction, even in the LiDAR aerial, of a drainage way through here to the culvert behind Dr. Morrow's property. And you can actually see, before I draw over it, there's a dark line on the aerial that coincides with the contours. That's the drainage way through the two affected properties to the culvert and then across the street. And you can see the dug drainage ditch down that way. And the confluence of these two areas is that 26-foot right-of-way and 14-foot travelway area depicted on the Good Deeds plan. Constructability is also a question because the 14-foot travelway is depicted coincident with the property line. And the consent agreement requires that there either be a 3-to-1 fill slope extension, which would, if constructed, would of necessity place fill on Dr. Morrow's property, or if by some happy coincidence it could be possible to establish the finished grade of the drive exactly with the existing contour as you climb up right tight to the property line, which is a fairly fine needle to thread. You would have to excavate to place the specified amount of gravel. And if you were to excavate the specified amount of gravel where the plan depicts the road right away, you would have to undermine land on Dr. Morrow's property again. So there's a constructability question. The alignment of the 14-foot travelway has angle points in it, and as indicated, there's a culvert depicted approximately here for benefit of this drive, and then a culvert depicted approximately here as it makes its way from one side of the right-of-way and skips over at the very end to make the curb cut onto High Street. But this drainage way is unaddressed.
Todd?
Council, I'd like to address a couple things that were just said. Our ordinance does not allow for a driveway or other structure to be built on or over the property line. The way that Good Deeds drew this close to the property line was a result of we didn't have a complete design at the point that it was drawn. We do have a 26-foot wide right-of-way, and I don't believe that there's going to be an issue with, on the Kennedy side, you have a higher elevation than you do on the Morrow side. There would be plenty of room on her side of the property to end the fill and also to ditch it to ensure that the water travels to its intended place. Also, I would say that the swale that we're talking about on the Morrow property, in my generous estimate, I would say is 6 inches or less. It's very narrow. Again, we're not talking about some geyser come rushing down there. We're talking about a very small amount of water that every time we have a storm event is going to make its way to the bay, just like it does throughout the city, throughout the country, throughout the world. And I think that this has been well thought out, well planned, and I ask for your support and happy to ask any further questions. I also know that Mike has something he'd like to say to the council on behalf of Ms. Kennedy.
Hi, I'm Mike Cunning. I live in Belfast. I'm a Realtor here. This whole chain of events stems from an action 7 years ago that was an inattention to detail by our planning department, different personnel than we have currently. So, and what I'm here to do is I'm here to put a personal face on it. This is Judith Kennedy here. We've been trying to sell her property, and you all know what the market's like right now. We've been trying to sell her property with tremendous effort to move her on to the next page in her life. And this last minute issue, to me, doesn't pass the straight face test. The fact that the attorney heard about it 5 days ago is not the issue here. The issue is that we have been working at this 16 months with these personnel behind us, over more than 2 years, getting on 3 years now, trying to sell this property. It has come up, and this solution has come up in various forms for numbers of months. So I acknowledge your position, but I think it's late. And I want to put a personal face on this. This is like you and I. We're trying to just move on to the next phase in our life, getting caught up with the foreclosure issues, mistakes that happened 7 years ago, and banks. One bank, Aurora Mortgage Servicing, was bought by NationStar. So there's been a transition there too. Meantime, she's sitting there. And we now have a valid offer. This is a person who is going to be a wonderful citizen of Belfast. I think we need to move forward on this. Thank you.
We have been trying to cooperate with everybody. We did not want to see this woman lose her sale. We were just trying to make sure our property didn't flood. That's why we said 2 weeks. We are not trying to harm anybody. All we want to make sure it works. And if this goes in and it doesn't work, we're the ones that's going to suffer. And there has been no design. And when you do a consent decree, this is a zoning violation. This isn't something that you just ask permission for a permit. You're fixing a zoning violation, and it requires detail. And all I'm saying is, there's water. My client tells me that every spring, that down there, the water overflows that bank. It gets really deep. So you can have the right period of time in August, you won't see a problem at all. We just want to make sure it works. And I don't want to be a victim of this process. We want to help out. That's why we rushed so fast, and no one ever sent us any plans until 5 days ago. They talked about a lot of different ideas, but they sent a plan recently, and we didn't have a chance to look at that plan. And we're a victim of that too. Everyone here, I think, has been trying to do the right thing. I don't find anyone at fault. I'm just telling you I need to protect my client's property. All I need is 2 weeks. I think I can accomplish that in 2 weeks. If I can't do it, I have to protect my client's interests. I'm just saying that we're being very reasonable. We're trying to cooperate. We're not trying to destroy someone's possibility of selling their property. We're trying to get people in our team to get this thing done quickly, and hopefully it will work out. I think there's going to be some water problems there, and if we can design a system that works, and we say this is what needs to happen, then if they can do that, that probably will work for us. But the problem is, we have no control right now. Thanks.
What's your pleasure, folks? Right?
Todd, I buy a piece of property, I want to put in a driveway, what's the normal process?
Depends on whether the road is state-owned
Yeah,
within the
assuming
urban compact.
all of
or-
that is legit, right?
Let's say it's a town-owned road or it's within the urban compact, you get a driveway opening permit from Bob Richards. Bob Richards has already weighed in on this project. And in fact, some of his input has changed the design to allow him to continue to maintain the city's culvert. But there is no design, there is no engineering. You lay a driveway in, and you know, if you're crossing wetlands or something, now we get DEP involved with NERPA or other permitting, but there is no requirement for somebody to submit drawings or ask for permission from my office to install a driveway.
You know, I just want to say I drive by there a lot, but I walk by there a lot. And I'm not saying it floods, but plenty of water goes through there. It's you know, I've seen it with a lot of water in it, and anytime you walk by there and you look down at that little stream on the other side of the road, there's water in that ditch. You know, it's like a little tiny stream. It's not a big one, but it's not a dry piece of grass. So I had a question before, is that can we approve this here for you guys to resolve this? It sounds like it's something that can happen on a dual track. They can dispute it while it goes forward without having to come back to us unless they don't. I mean, it sounds to me like if they, you know, aren't going to approve it, you know, one way or the other, it's not going to go forward.
My comment to that question would be the amended paragraph 7 that I gave you. We've included language that addresses best management practice for erosion. We've addressed the third culvert not shown on the plan shall be installed to address drainage from the abutting property located map 14, lot 33, Ms. Morrow's property. Location of said culvert shall be determined to the satisfaction of the owner of map 14, lot 33, Ms. Morrow, and agreed upon by the code enforcement officer prior to installation. We acknowledge that there is drainage from there. We acknowledge that a culvert needs to go in, and we're asking for twice the size, almost 3 times the size of a culvert being installed under this driveway than what she has across her own property to be able to access the rear of the property. I think that we have gone forth in good faith. I think we will continue to go forward in good faith to make this work, and I guess any other questions?
I'm not willing to decide it tonight. I think it's too much to expect a matter with such contested facts to be put before a board that is not expert, that doesn't know the law, doesn't know the facts well enough. If I had to decide, I'd have to decide based on personalities, not on the facts, and I won't do that. I can't decide it.
Marina?
I was pretty much going to say the same thing, that I don't have enough expertise legally in terms of, I guess, why is there a need for 2 weeks? What would be done in that 2 weeks? Why are you asking for 2 weeks?
What we need to do is determine, because we haven't had time, is how much water flows there, the peak flows, or the peak flow period of time, and to determine what would happen when you block off that flow. When you build something and you block off the flow, then you have to figure out, you know, what you need to do something. In my opinion, you can always design something that would work. The question is how expensive it would be. And you have to know how much water goes through there at peak periods and how much water flows out at peak periods to know what the effect would be of blocking the flow. And that's what takes the time. That's what we need to try. But when you try to call up engineers, that's our problem. That's a problem. And I may need it done sooner than 2 weeks. As far as I know, I'm going to need 2 weeks.
Right, and the repercussions of giving this 2-week period of time is that the closing would not happen, that it would have to be delayed for an additional 2 months, is that correct?
Well, counsel for Nation Star is not available on the 20th. Previous zoning board engagement in another town. And right now, this closing on the 21st is contingent upon this consent agreement.
How about, give me 10 days. I think I can make it work in 10 days. That should make everything work for everybody.
Unfortunately, council does not meet until the 20th. Again, legal counsel for one of the players is not available. And I would contend to the council that we're your experts. That's what we're hired to do. I guess it comes down to whether you have faith in city council, whether you have faith in city staff to bring forth what we believe to be a very fair and well thought out plan.
Eric?
I don't know what to add to the conversation. I didn't expect this tonight to this level. Any decision that I would be making would not be based on faith, or I have faith in a lot of people. I probably have faith in this gentleman too, but I'm not here to determine faith or who's right or wrong. I'm not prepared to make a decision on the facts, and it sounds like some facts are being wanted, and it sounds like we've got a problem. And I'm not sure that at this time I'm willing to commit to a decision based on the facts that I have. I am familiar with this property. I remember the process. It had to be 2 years ago. So I'm very familiar with it. I haven't walked by it, but based on what I thought we were going to be talking about, I didn't realize it was going to be at this level.
And to let you understand, we didn't think it was at this level either when we scheduled it. This has just recently come forward, and so we've been scrambling. We spent the entire afternoon with all the legal counsels for the different parties involved trying to work something out, something that we felt would be equitable and fair to all parties.
Right.
Well, we meet on the 15th for a workshop. Why don't we just schedule a special portion of that as a special meeting? That's Thursday the 15th.
Yeah.
Decided then. It's a little bit less than 10 days, but
That's 8 days.
well, it's 9 days. That's my suggestion.
Essentially, and Todd, I just want to say I have great trust in you, so I want to start with
that. Thank you for
that. And we each have our jobs, and one of them is that I get to take the incoming, the rest of it. So, essentially this comes down to a neighbor's right to put a driveway on their property. And for whatever reason, now we said, oh, it's because there's a violation, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing. It's, in the end, do you have a right to put a driveway on your property? You do, as long as you don't flood your neighbor's property when you do it, and or keep your neighbor. And I think we've become increasingly sensitive to this because water becomes a really big issue with putting a driveway. All of a sudden, somebody's got a flooded yard when they never had one before, or it doesn't drain, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm pretty much inclined to do both things. I'm inclined to give them some time, but I'm also inclined to approve it, because I think somebody, as long as you can prove to me that this thing's not going to screw up the The drainage, nobody likes to have a driveway next to their property. I had to buy some property next to my house because all of a sudden I realized somebody could put a driveway like 2 feet from my bedroom, from my kitchen window. And so I ended up buying that property, so it couldn't happen. And, but if you don't buy it, then somebody does have the right to do it. So they don't have the right to flood you, so I think we're looking at two things that I would like to see happen. So I'm a support, I agree with Roger. I'd be happy to do that on the 15th, or even schedule a special meeting if need be, but I'd give you folks some time to figure this out, but, you know, I think the only question is the property going to drain okay?
Yeah, it is 8 days, not my 9, but you said it's enough.
I think so, yeah.
Well, try.
And I would just point out that you guys, you need to work with Todd and come to something reasonable. If I detect that there's been intransigence between now and next Thursday, I can just tell you I'm probably going to go with somebody I know.
Okay.
So, motion to table, is that what we're doing?
Motion to move this matter to the night of November 15th?
Okay, so moved.
Yes. Is it your intent to do this prior or after the workshop?
Why don't we do it prior?
So, would you like to move the workshop to like 6:30? Because it was initially scheduled to start at 6.
Because we have people coming for that as well.
Yes.
I'm out of town.
So,
Well, you know, this might only take 5 minutes. It shouldn't take more than that if...
I think it depends upon the amount of agreement or disagreement between the parties.
I think you need to give yourself a half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the workshop starts at 6:30?
The president's scheduled to start at 6, but there is still ample time to move it if you want some time in advance and not having to come here at 5. That's your...
Why don't we do the workshop at 6? I mean, do this hearing at 6?
Have the council meeting at 6 and the workshop at 6:30
Right.
Okay.
on the 15th. Is there a motion on that?
I made that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
All right, we got any other?
Yeah, we might have here. Oh, request from the owners of the property located at the corner of Jackson Avenue, Bayview Street,